I'm Angelica Foster, 32, and I built a media company from the ground up, no shortcuts, no handouts. For years, I showed up for my family in every way that mattered, paid their bills, skipped opportunities, stayed quiet to keep the peace. But when my own mother called me the deadbeat of the family at my sister's wedding, I made a choice that changed everything. Ever been dismissed by the people you sacrificed the most for? Drop your story in the comments, you're not alone. Before we get into it, let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to walk away from people who took you for granted, hit that like button and subscribe. What happened next caught everyone off guard. I'm Angelica Foster, 34, and for most of my life, I played the role no one clapped for. The steady one. The dependable daughter. The woman you could count on until you forgot she was even in the room. It wasn't something I chose. It just happened. My younger sister Rachel was the kind of child mothers brag about in grocery store aisles. She had this sparkle, perfect report cards, big blue eyes, the kind of laugh that made people stop and smile. She was the one teachers wrote home about. The one who always got the solo in the school play, even if I'd spent months coaching her behind closed doors. And my mom, Diane, well, she adored her. You could see it in the way she lit up when Rachel walked into a room. It wasn't cruel. Just obvious. Growing up, I learned quickly where I fit. If Rachel was the fireworks, I was the fuse, necessary, but not the part anyone clapped for. I stopped trying to compete and just helped. If Rachel needed new clothes for a dance, I'd offer mine. If Mom forgot she needed supplies for her bake sale committee, I'd bike across town and grab them. No one asked. I just did it. I don't think anyone really noticed, except maybe Dad, before he left anyway. After he moved out, things got harder. Mom didn't talk about it much. She just started doing more, hosting more, organizing more, trying to prove everything was fine. I was 13 when I started helping with the bills. Babysitting, dog walking, tutoring. Whatever I could scrape together. Rachel was 9, and she didn't really know. She shouldn't have had to. I didn't want her to feel the weight. I thought I was doing the right thing by absorbing it all. The dynamic stayed the same through high school. Rachel blossomed, debate team, cheer captain, class president. Mom was always front and center at her events, camera in hand, voice loudest in the stands. I was in the background, usually helping backstage or filling in for someone who flaked. I remember one awards night senior year, I had quietly won a regional math competition, but when I told Mom, she barely looked up from curling Rachel's hair for a homecoming photo. "Oh, that's nice," she said. "Don't forget to iron Rachel's dress before you go, okay?" It stung. But by then, I'd trained myself not to react. I thought if I just kept giving, kept showing up, one day she'd turn and see me clearly. I thought there was a scoreboard somewhere, tallying the sacrifices. That eventually, something would tip. College came. I got into a solid in-state school with a partial scholarship. Rachel got accepted to a private university in California, expensive, elite, and completely out of reach financially. Or so I thought. I was working part-time at a local diner the summer before my first semester, saving up for books and housing, when I overheard Mom on the phone, promising the deposit for Rachel's dorm and asking about payment plans for tuition. That was the first time it really hit me. There was no money left for me because it had already been earmarked for her. I didn't say anything. I just went back to wiping down menus and pretending I hadn't heard. A week later, Mom asked if I'd mind helping cover the cost of Rachel's plane ticket, just to ease the burden. I said yes. I always said yes. I lived at home through college, commuting 2 hours a day between classes and shifts at the diner. I graduated with honors and 3 internships under my belt. Rachel changed majors twice, then landed an internship in New York through one of Mom's college friends. When she got the offer, Mom threw a backyard send-off with catered food and fairy lights strung across the trees. For my graduation, we had takeout and a grocery store cake. I told myself it didn't matter, that I wasn't doing it for applause. When Mom's boutique closed during the recession, I stepped in again. She was behind on rent, and the bills were piling up. I dipped into my emergency savings, the money I was planning to use to move out, and wrote the checks quietly. Rachel was in grad school by then. I never told her what was going on. I didn't want her to worry. The same pattern followed into adulthood. I worked in corporate logistics. Not glamorous, but steady. Rachel bounced between cities and creative gigs, PR, fashion, freelance writing. Every time she hit a rough patch, Mom would call me. Can you help cover Rachel's insurance this month? Her lease fell through. Can she stay with you for a bit? It's just until she's back on her feet. So she moved in. Twice. Both times, I cleared the second bedroom, stocked the fridge with almond milk, gave her the nicer bathroom. I never asked for rent. I thought maybe this time, she'd see me differently. Maybe Mom would too. But they didn't. They never really did. When Mom had her surgery 3 years ago, knee replacement, long overdue, I took 3 weeks off work to stay with her. I handled her appointments, her meds, the bills, her physical therapy. Rachel flew in for the weekend, posted a few filtered selfies of them with smoothies and flowers, then flew back out. People left comments like, "Such a devoted daughter." I liked them anyway. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had pushed back more. If I had demanded recognition, or refused to help, or even just said no once in a while. But at the time, saying no felt like abandoning the only thing tethering me to my family. I wasn't the favorite. I wasn't even visible most days. But at least I was useful. That counted for something. Or so I thought. I didn't know then how far it would go. How one day, that same mother, the one I covered for, paid for, cared for, would stand at a microphone in front of 150 people and casually erase me with a single sentence. I didn't know yet how deep the cut could go. But I would. And when it came, it wouldn't be loud or dramatic. It would be simple. Offhand. Something that passed most people by. Except this time, the world would see it too. And this time, I wouldn't just disappear. When I left my job at the logistics firm, I didn't expect a parade. But I also didn't expect silence. Not the heavy, strained kind, just the kind where no one even pretends to care. I had spent 6 years at the same company, worked my way up from assistant project coordinator to team lead. It wasn't a dream job, but it was stable, well-paying, and predictable. Which was exactly the problem. I felt myself shrinking inside that cubicle every day. The more organized I became, the more invisible I felt. The big ideas, the strategy work, that all went to people louder than me, even when I'd written the proposal myself. I hit a ceiling, and I knew if I stayed, I'd watch 10 more years slip away behind spreadsheets. So I left. I'd been saving for almost 2 years and started laying the groundwork for a small media consultancy, content strategy, branding, campaign planning. I already had one small nonprofit client lined up and a few leads from friends. I wasn't reckless. I had spreadsheets, models, 6 months of runway. I took it seriously. When I called Mom to tell her, I kept it short. I said I was launching my own business. That it was time. That I was ready. There was a pause on the other end. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. But I knew that pause. It meant recalculating. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" she said, in that tone that sounded supportive if you didn't know better. "I mean, with the economy. What happens if it doesn't work out?" "I've been planning this for a while," I said. "It's not like I just woke up and quit." "I'm just saying," she added, "you don't want to end up, well, depending on us." I laughed, but it came out sharper than I intended. "I've never depended on you." She didn't respond. We didn't talk again for a few weeks after that. I tried not to take it personally. I poured myself into the business, late nights refining pitch decks, building my website, juggling client calls from my living room. It was exhausting but exhilarating. The nonprofit client referred me to 2 others. A small bakery hired me to handle their rebrand. I wasn't rolling in money, but I was paying the bills. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was building something that was mine. But the more I grew, the less they acknowledged it. At family dinners, they'd still ask about the logistics company. I'd remind them I had left, and they'd blink like it was new information. Mom would introduce me as in marketing to her friends, quickly pivoting to Rachel's latest PR campaign or her boyfriend's new startup. Rachel had started dating a guy named Jake around that time. Tech adjacent. Lots of money talk. He wore sneakers that cost more than my rent. I didn't mind him, honestly. He was smart, polite in a condescending way. But it didn't take long to see how his presence shifted the temperature in our family dynamic. With Jake in the picture, Rachel's social life ballooned. Suddenly, there were constant events, housewarmings, gallery shows, boat parties for friends of friends. Every time I heard about one, it was secondhand. Or worse, after the fact. One Saturday, I opened Instagram and saw a picture of Mom, Rachel, and Jake at a winery, all beaming, all tagged. The caption read, "Family Day, wine glass, yellow heart." I hadn't even known there was a plan. I texted Rachel later that night. "Hey, looked like fun today. Didn't know you guys had something planned." She replied a few minutes later. "Oh, sorry, it was super last minute. Jake's friend invited us this morning. Totally random." Except in the photo, everyone was dressed in coordinated linen. The table had printed name cards. I recognized one of Mom's wine club friends in the background. I stopped responding. Later, I heard through a mutual friend that Mom had been telling people I was figuring things out, that I'd left corporate life for a while, but she wasn't sure how long that would last. She called it my freelancer phase, like it was something I'd grow out of, like braces or a bad haircut. What she didn't mention was that I'd already signed 3 new contracts that month. Or that one of my campaigns had doubled a client's revenue over the holiday season. She didn't know, or didn't ask, that I was teaching myself SEO analytics late at night or sending cold emails to local vendors every morning. Instead, I became the punchline. At a birthday dinner for one of our cousins, I showed up after a long client meeting, still in a blazer, still running on caffeine. I sat down between Rachel and an old family friend, Lisa, who looked at me and said, "So, Angelica, are you still doing that little content thing?" Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "Oh yes," she laughed lightly. "She's a creative now. Our starving artist phase. We're being supportive, of course." I smiled. Not because it was funny, it wasn't, but because I'd learned how not to make other people uncomfortable. That was my job in the family. Absorb the insult, keep the peace. But I remember that moment vividly. The fork in my hand. The way Rachel glanced at me, then quickly looked away. I remember the color of the wine in Mom's glass. The exact way she laughed. That night, when I got home, I deleted Instagram off my phone. I stopped checking the family group chat as often. I told myself I was too busy, which was true, but not the full story. They weren't cruel. That's what made it so hard to explain to anyone. There were no screaming matches, no betrayals you could write down and point to, just a slow erosion. A quiet clipping of wings. They didn't cut me off, they just stopped including me. And when they did speak about me, it was with a tone of amused detachment, like I was playing dress-up in a life they didn't take seriously. Around that time, Rachel got engaged. It was a whole thing, rooftop proposal, professional photographer hiding behind a potted plant, Mom crying in a montage video someone edited to Coldplay. I found out the day after it happened, when the photos hit Facebook. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Did you see? So exciting." Ring sparkling heart, no call. No warning. Just a forwarded event. I sent a simple reply. "Congrats. Happy for them." She heart reacted and didn't say anything else. From then on, it was wedding talk. All the time. Dresses, venues, planners, tastings. I wasn't involved. Not really. I got an invitation to a group Zoom call once, something about floral preferences. But when I joined, no one acknowledged me, and the screen froze halfway through. I never got another link. I started to notice something else. When I did post about my work, a campaign launch, a milestone, no one in the family liked it. Not once. But when Rachel posted a brunch photo or Jake posted his new espresso machine, the comments flowed like champagne. I think that was when the shift started in me. Not anger, exactly. Just clarity. It wasn't that I didn't belong. It was that they had already written a version of me that they liked better, unthreatening, self-sufficient, vaguely lost. Someone they could root for without being challenged by. And if I tried to correct the narrative, if I spoke too proudly or insisted on being seen, it made them uncomfortable. I wasn't failing. That was the part that stung the most. I was doing well. Slowly, steadily, building something from scratch. But they didn't want to hear it. Because if my life was working, it meant they had misunderstood me all along. And no one in my family liked being wrong. So they stuck with the story that felt safe. She's just figuring it out. She's in her freelancer phase. She's a creative now. It was easier than saying the truth. That I'd changed. That I'd grown. That maybe they'd underestimated me. But they wouldn't be able to ignore me forever. And whether they liked it or not, something was coming that would make them finally, undeniably, look. Rachel's wedding came together quickly. Not rushed, exactly, just tightly choreographed. The kind of event that looks spontaneous on social media, but takes 5 spreadsheets, a stylist, and a family committee to pull off. I wasn't part of that committee. I found out the wedding date through a group text. No direct message, no call. Just a mass update sent out the morning they booked the venue. Save the date. Can't wait to celebrate with everyone clinking glasses ringed up. I replied with a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. A week later, I got the official invitation in the mail. It was addressed to Ms. Angelica Foster, no handwritten note, no +1 line. Just embossed cardstock and curated formality. It wasn't a surprise, really. I already knew I wasn't in the bridal party. That had been made clear early on when Rachel tagged her bridesmaids in a "Say Yes to the Dress" post. All 5 women were in coordinated champagne robes, holding matching glasses of Prosecco. One of them used to be my friend. I didn't recognize the others. A few days later, I called Mom. Not to ask why I wasn't included, I already knew better, but to check if she needed anything. She answered on speakerphone, voice tight with multitasking. "Oh, hi, honey. Everything's just a bit crazy right now. I've got 3 vendors on hold and Rachel's having a meltdown about the chair sashes. Let me know if you want help," I offered. "I can call around, handle logistics. Or errands if you need anything local." There was a pause. "You've got your hands full with your company. I can make time." "Well," she exhaled. "I guess if you're not too busy." Then she asked if I could contribute toward the DJ deposit. Rachel really had her heart set on this guy. He's expensive, but the energy he brings to a room is worth it. I wired the money that night, enough to cover half the cost. She asked if I minded doing it anonymously. "It's just easier that way," she said. "You know how it is with family politics." I didn't push back. As the wedding approached, I kept waiting for some kind of inclusion. Not in the spotlight, just at the edge. A planning lunch, a dress fitting, maybe a rehearsal dinner invitation. None came. I found out later that even my second cousins were invited to that dinner. But not me. When I brought it up casually, Mom brushed it off. "You've been so busy," she said. "We didn't want to obligate you." I didn't argue. I just nodded, even though we were on the phone and she couldn't see it. A habit, I guess. The day of the wedding was clear and warm. Mid-September, just cool enough to keep the flowers from wilting. The ceremony was held at a vineyard about 40 minutes outside the city, elegant, understated, the kind of place with chandeliers in the tasting room and white wooden chairs lined up like piano keys on the lawn. I drove myself. Parked at the far end of the lot. I wore a simple navy dress, one I'd bought on sale months earlier, but never had a reason to wear. I brought a gift, hand-wrapped, thoughtful, something they'd never thank me for. Inside, everything glowed. Pale pink florals, gold accents, flickering candles floating in glass cylinders. Rachel looked stunning. She always did. Her dress was sleek and modern, her hair curled into soft waves, her makeup flawless. She looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. I stood near the back during the ceremony. I don't think Rachel saw me. I'm not sure if Mom did either, though she walked past me twice without acknowledgement. The vows were short. Beautiful even. Jay cried. Rachel didn't. She smiled the whole time. Cocktail hour was held on the lawn. Servers moved through the crowd with trays of wine and hors d'oeuvres. People laughed, took pictures, toasted early. I stayed off to the side, near a low stone wall that edged the property. Just far enough not to intrude, but close enough to be seen if anyone was looking. No one was. About halfway through the hour, I heard Mom's voice. Clear and bright, the way it gets when she's in her element. She was standing with a group of Rachel's college friends, all tanned, laughing, holding stemless wine glasses like accessories. I wasn't trying to listen. I was maybe 10 feet away, facing the opposite direction, staring out toward the vineyard rows. Then I heard her say it. "Oh, don't mind her," she laughed. "She's just the deadbeat of the family." It was so casual, like a throwaway joke. Light-hearted. Almost affectionate if you didn't understand the history behind it. The way she said it made it sound like I was harmless. Like a lovable disappointment. The conversation kept going. A few polite chuckles. Someone said, "Oh, stop, Diane," like it was all in good fun. But then one of the women glanced over at me. Her face changed when she realized I had heard. That fleeting flicker of pity, the kind people try to cover with a smile. I didn't move. I didn't react. I just stood there, wine glass still in my hand, staring out at the vineyard. My ears rang. My body felt hot, then cold, then hot again. Deadbeat. After everything. After the bills I paid. After the rent I covered. After the nights I sat beside Mom's hospital bed while Rachel was posting throwback vacation pics from Miami. After the DJ. After the fact that I never once made it about me. That's what she called me. A deadbeat. It wasn't even the insult that hurt. It was the dismissiveness. Like I wasn't just unimportant, I was a punchline. Something to explain away while the real family celebrated around me. I left before the dancing started. Slipped out while most people were still on their second glass of rose. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't leave a note. I drove home with the radio off, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to think of a time Mom had ever said anything proud about me. Not just to me, but about me to someone else. I couldn't think of a single instance. Not one. The next morning, I got a group text from Rachel. "Thank you all for making yesterday so magical, 2 hearts feeling so loved and grateful." I didn't respond. 2 hours later, I saw a new post on Mom's Facebook. A photo of the wedding party, all white and gold and smiles. The caption read, "A perfect day with our perfect girl. Couldn't be prouder of our Rachel, beautiful inside and out. She's everything a mother could hope for." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and opened a new document on my desktop. I didn't know it yet, but that moment, standing alone on the edge of that perfect vineyard, overhearing a sentence that was supposed to be harmless, was the beginning of something else. Not revenge. Not even anger. Just clarity. And a decision I wouldn't come back from. I left the wedding without saying a word to anyone. No polite wave to the bride and groom, no goodnight to the cousins, no last glance back. I walked across the gravel lot in those uncomfortable heels, climbed into my car, and shut the door. Then I just sat there. The engine stayed off. My hands rested on the steering wheel, but I wasn't ready to drive. Not yet. The music from the venue floated faintly through the closed windows, something upbeat and vaguely familiar, the kind of song that plays at every wedding, where everyone is supposed to dance and laugh like nothing's broken. I stared straight ahead. The vineyard rose blurred in the dusk light. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to hold it all together. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry, not exactly. What I felt was harder to describe, something like grief, but flatter. Like the grief you feel after someone's been sick for a long time. Like you've already mourned the version you hoped for, and what's left is just the confirmation. I stayed parked there until the lot lights flickered on, casting everything in a pale yellow glow. Then I drove home in silence, dropped the gift off on Rachel's porch at 11:30 p.m., and didn't look back. I didn't talk to anyone about it at first. I told myself it wasn't worth explaining. That it would sound small, taken out of context, one sentence, overheard, brushed off. But it wasn't just the words. It was the truth underneath them. The ease with which they were said. The comfort Mom had, laughing like I was just a long-standing family joke. A few days passed before I said anything out loud. I met up with Maya, my best friend, for coffee, the kind of meeting we used to schedule once a month, but had let slide because we were both busy. She asked how the wedding was, and I surprised myself by answering honestly. I left early. She looked up from her latte. Why? I hesitated. Mom called me a deadbeat. To one of Rachel's friends. I heard her say it. Like it was nothing. Maya didn't say anything for a moment. She just blinked, her lips slightly parted like she was waiting for the punchline that never came. Then she set her cup down slowly and said, "You don't owe them your silence anymore." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because deep down, I had still been protecting them. Even after the dinners I wasn't invited to, the DJ payment I wasn't acknowledged for. The years of being useful but never visible. I'd still been holding my tongue. Making excuses. Pretending the hurt was manageable because naming it made it real. Maya sat back in her chair. I mean, Angelica, come on. You've been covering for them for years. I knew she was right. I thought about the bills. The favors. The nights I'd spent sleeping in a hospital chair so Mom wouldn't wake up alone. The afternoons I canceled meetings to help Rachel move out of one apartment and into another. The times I swallowed disappointment like it was my job. And for what? To be called a deadbeat at my sister's wedding? I went home that night and opened an old notebook. Not the kind I used for client strategy, but the kind I kept tucked away in the back of my closet, the one I used when I needed to untangle my thoughts without anyone else watching. I started writing everything down. Not just what happened at the wedding, but the whole pattern. I listed every time I'd paid for something they forgot, every holiday I spent alone because I was too far or too busy or probably didn't want the fuss. Every time Mom had praised Rachel's career while pretending not to remember what I did for a living. By the time I finished writing, the page was full. The ink had bled in a few places where I hadn't realized I was pressing so hard. My hand cramped. My chest hurt. But something had loosened too. I reread it all once. Then I turned the page and started a new list. One for me. Things I'd built. Clients who'd renewed their contracts because they trusted me. Projects that succeeded because of my strategy. People who referred me because they'd seen what I could do. Friends who showed up when I needed them. Things I'd accomplished without applause. The next morning, I opened my business email and filed for an LLC conversion. I'd been operating as a sole proprietor for too long. Part of me had been hesitant to formalize it, as if calling it a company might make someone laugh. But I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. I also updated my website, finally adding a section I'd been avoiding, testimonials. I reached out to clients and asked for honest feedback. Within 24 hours, 3 of them responded with notes that made me pause. Angelica is the reason our entire rebrand succeeded. She understood our mission better than we did. I've never worked with someone more quietly brilliant. Quietly brilliant. That one stayed with me. Not because I needed someone to call me brilliant, but because it reminded me that just because I didn't broadcast every success didn't mean they didn't exist. Meanwhile, my family stayed quiet. No follow-up from Rachel. No thank you for the gift. No check-in from Mom. I expected that. They were probably wrapped up in honeymoon logistics or post-wedding photo edits. Or maybe they were pretending I'd never been there at all. I didn't chase it. Instead, I spent time with people who saw me. Maya and I started meeting every Thursday for co-working sessions. A former client connected me with a women-led startup that needed help with digital strategy. I signed a 6-month contract that covered nearly half my year's income goal. The more I invested in my work and in myself, the more I realized how little I missed their approval. There were moments, though. Quiet ones. Like when I saw Rachel post a family photo with a caption that read, "Couldn't ask for a better support system, 2 hearts," and my name wasn't tagged. Or when Mom shared a memory from a past Christmas, writing, "Love our little family, always there for each other," even though that year I had been home alone with takeout and a headache because they'd forgotten to send me the address for dinner. Those moments stung. Not because I wanted to be part of their version of family anymore, but because it reminded me how easily I had been written out of it. I told Maya about it once, when we were walking back from lunch. It's like they've built this glass wall between us. I can see them. They can see me. But I'm not allowed inside. And if I tap too loudly on the glass, I'm the problem. She nodded. Yeah. And meanwhile, you're the one who built half that house. That metaphor stuck with me for days. Because it was true. I had spent so long trying to earn a seat at a table that I helped set, only to realize the chairs were reserved for people who never brought anything. That realization changed something in me. Quietly at first. But it grew. Like roots, slow and invisible, until one day the foundation cracks and the house starts to shift. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I had been that night in the parking lot. What I felt now was steadier. Clearer. I was done performing for an audience that kept me behind the curtain. And next time they tried to ignore me, it wouldn't be so easy. I didn't confront them. No dramatic calls. No family sit-down. No long, emotional message outlining everything they'd done wrong. I was tired of trying to get people to hear me when they had no intention of listening. Instead, I got quiet. Not silent, just focused. I took all the energy I'd spent trying to earn their approval and redirected it into my work. Hard. I woke up earlier. Took on more projects. Said yes to challenges I might have hesitated over before. I wasn't trying to prove anything to them, not anymore. But I was trying to see what happened when I gave my full effort to something without apology. 2 months after the wedding, I landed a client I never expected. It started as a referral through a friend of a friend. A small civic organization that needed help developing digital content for a voter education campaign. They didn't have much of a budget, but they were scrappy and passionate, and I respected what they were trying to do. I agreed to a modest contract, mostly strategy and content planning, but the more I got involved, the more I realized something was off. The data didn't add up. The voter registration numbers coming out of certain districts didn't match the reports. Candidate donations were spiking from LLCs that barely existed. There were whispers about backdoor deals. Nothing solid, just enough to raise suspicion. I started digging. In another life, I might have passed that info along to a journalist. But I wasn't just a strategist anymore. My media firm had grown beyond branding and social campaigns. I had a small production team. A freelance editor. I knew how to tell a story, and I knew how to verify facts. What started as a side contract turned into an investigation. Quiet at first. Nights spent combing through public records, early mornings conducting interviews, phone calls with reluctant sources who asked not to be named. I didn't publicize the work. No teasers, no behind-the-scenes posts. I didn't need the noise. I needed it to be right. 3 months after Rachel's wedding, the finished piece aired. A 30-minute investigative documentary, co-produced with a regional media collective, exposing campaign finance fraud, voter suppression tactics, and illegal donation channels tied to a local mayoral candidate. The evidence was airtight. The impact was immediate. 2 city officials stepped down within 48 hours. A formal ethics investigation was launched. My company's name appeared in the credits. So did mine. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I didn't even hint at it. It wasn't about them. But they found out anyway. That Saturday, during a baby shower for one of Rachel's friends, some elaborate backyard brunch setup with mimosas and name tags, someone saw the segment on the TV inside the house. It was airing on a major local affiliate right after a noon cooking show. Apparently, the audio caught everyone's attention. Someone shouted, "Wait, isn't that your sister on the news?" Mom was holding a stemless wine glass when it happened. She dropped it. It shattered at her feet. I wasn't there, obviously. But I heard about it from 3 different people. The first was a former classmate who happened to be at the party as a guest of a guest. She DM'd me that evening. Just saw your documentary. Amazing work. Your mom looked like she'd seen a ghost. The second was Rachel's college roommate, who still followed me on LinkedIn. She commented on the post I finally shared that weekend. "You deserve all this. And more. You've always been the real deal." The third was Maya. She called me the next morning. "So," she said, "how's it feel to drop a bomb without even showing up?" I shrugged, even though she couldn't see me. "Quiet," I said. "But satisfying." There was a long pause. Then she said, "They're never going to be able to write you off again. Not after this." That wasn't the goal. But she was right. Something shifted after the documentary aired. Not just publicly, but privately inside me. For years, I'd been doing good work, solid work, work that mattered. But I'd never let myself really take up space. I was always too careful. too restrained. Afraid of seeming like I was bragging. Afraid of making anyone uncomfortable with how hard I was trying. This time, I didn't shrink. I did interviews. Talked about the process. Shared the behind-the-scenes photos. I responded to every message, every email, every congrats, with calm gratitude, not apology. And for once, I wasn't waiting for someone from my family to chime in, because I knew they'd seen it. I waited 4 days. Then, out of curiosity, I checked Mom's Facebook. Nothing. Not even a like. Her most recent post was a filtered group photo from the baby shower with a caption that read, "So lucky to have such smart, beautiful women in our life." My name wasn't tagged, but I wasn't surprised anymore. That's what made it different. Before, that kind of omission would have gutted me. I would have gone quiet, maybe doubted whether I had done something wrong. Now I felt removed. Like watching a rerun of a show I'd already memorized. I knew the script. I just didn't care to follow it anymore. What did surprise me was the message from Rachel a week later. It was short. "Hey, just saw the documentary. I didn't know you were working on something like that. Congrats." I stared at the message for a full minute before deciding how to respond. "Thanks. It was important work." That's all I said. She didn't write back. 2 days after that, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was upbeat in a forced way. "Hi, sweetheart. Just calling to check in. Hope you're doing well. We saw something on the news, looked like your name. Anyway, give me a call when you have a minute." I didn't call back. Not out of pettiness. Just self-respect. If she wanted to talk, she could say what she meant. Not dance around it like I'd accidentally wandered into relevance. Over the next few weeks, I got busy. The doc opened doors. A regional foundation offered grant funding for future civic reporting. A podcast reached out for an interview. My client base grew, not just in size, but in quality. More aligned. More purpose-driven. The kind of work I used to dream about when I was still trying to prove myself. One night, as I sat on my balcony eating leftovers out of the container, I realized something. I'd been so focused on getting their attention for years, I'd never considered what I'd do if I didn't need it anymore. Now I didn't. And it felt light. Like I could finally move in any direction I chose without dragging their doubt behind me. They had called me a deadbeat. And now they were watching the evening news, hearing strangers say my name with respect. I hadn't burned the bridge. I'd just built something better. Quietly. Brick by brick. And now, for the first time, they were the ones on the outside looking in. After the documentary aired, something subtle began to shift. At first, it was small things, LinkedIn requests from people I hadn't spoken to in years, a message from my high school journalism teacher congratulating me and asking if I'd be willing to speak to her current students. A classmate from undergrad, someone I barely remembered, shared the link on Twitter with the caption, "I always knew she'd do something like this." I blinked at the words for a moment. Because no, they didn't. No one did. People who used to smile past me at family events suddenly remembered how close we were. A woman I hadn't seen since childhood messaged me on Facebook to say, "Your mom must be over the moon. She's always said you were the smart one." That one made me laugh out loud. Mom hadn't called once. But strangers were filling in the blanks with a story that made sense to them. In their version, of course she was proud. Of course she supported me. That's what mothers do, right? Except, no. That wasn't how it happened. Not even close. I ignored most of it. Politely, for the most part. I wasn't trying to make a point. I just didn't have the energy to carry a version of the story that didn't match the truth. But I noticed something else too, something that felt like balance finally tilting the other way. People stopped asking about Rachel. Not completely. But the weight of attention had shifted. Conversations that used to begin with, "How's your sister doing?" started with, "I saw your piece on the election." The center of gravity had moved, just slightly, in my direction. And my mother? She went quiet. No new photos. No cheerful status updates. No long captions about "my girls." It was like someone had pressed pause on her curated life. Or maybe she just didn't know how to reconcile it, how to keep posting party photos while people were commenting, "Isn't that your daughter on the news?" Because they were. I saw the comments. A woman from her wine club had tagged her under the video clip on Facebook with, "How amazing is this? Angelica's a powerhouse. You must be so proud." There was no reply. Instead, a few days later, I got a voicemail. Her voice was light-clipped. "Hi, honey. I saw the news segment. Looked like a big deal. You should have told us. It's just, well, it's embarrassing to be blindsided like that in front of everyone. Anyway, call me when you have time." That was it. No apology. No congratulations. No acknowledgement of what I had actually done. Just discomfort. Because my success had happened outside her control. Because people were asking questions she didn't have tidy answers for. Because, for once, she wasn't the one who got to tell the story. I didn't call back. There was nothing to say. I knew finally, fully, that nothing I did would ever be enough for her. Not because I lacked anything, but because acknowledging me meant rewriting her version of things. And she wasn't ready for that. And for the first time, I didn't need her to be. It was strange, that kind of peace. It didn't come all at once. There were still moments when the old instincts flared, when I'd type out a message to her or Rachel, just to see how it felt, then delete it. There were still flashes of guilt, the quiet echo of the role I'd played for so long, the good daughter, the helper, the one who didn't make things messy. But the more I stood in the truth of what I'd built, the quieter those echoes became. Rachel messaged me again. A few weeks later. Just a single line. "I didn't realize how much you were doing. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel invisible." It wasn't everything, but it was something. I stared at the message for a long time. Thought about ignoring it, but I didn't. Instead, I typed, "Thanks." It was hard to feel seen back then. "But I'm okay now." She replied with a heart emoji. We didn't talk much after that. But it was the first message that hadn't felt performative. No obligation. No surface-level politeness. Just one sentence that acknowledged the truth, however late. I kept working. I kept building. The grant from the regional foundation came through. We launched a second documentary series, shorter segments this time, focused on community impact stories. I brought on another freelancer to help manage the schedule. My calendar filled quickly. Not with busy work, but with momentum. And with the growth came something unexpected. I started getting invitations to panels, events, even guest lectures. People wanted to hear from me, not just as a media strategist, but as someone who had navigated building something from the margins. Who'd carved out space where there wasn't supposed to be any. At one university event, during the Q&A, a student asked how I handled people who underestimated me. I paused before answering. I stopped waiting for them to see me, I said. And I started making things they couldn't ignore. The applause felt surreal. Afterward, one of the organizers walked up to me with a folder in hand. "We'd love to feature your story in our alumni magazine," she said. "Would you be open to an interview?" I smiled. "Sure." I knew what was coming next. She tilted her head. "Wait, you're related to Rachel Foster, right? I think she mentioned you once at an event a couple years ago." I nodded. "That's me." She blinked. "Wow. Small world." And then, gently, "You're the one people are talking about now." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Back home, I updated the About section on my company website. For years, it had been vague, intentionally. No photo. Just a line about strategy and storytelling. But that night, I added a new paragraph. I wrote plainly, directly, about what we stood for. Why we told the stories we did. Why being underestimated had sharpened our focus, not dulled it. I put my photo next to it. No filters. No careful posing. Just me, sitting at my desk, looking like exactly who I was. I sent the update live at 2 a.m. Then I closed my laptop, turned off the light, and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my old manager at the logistics firm. "Saw your name on the news. Congrats. You always had that fire, just needed the right place to burn." It was the kind of message I would have framed once. Now it just made me smile. I was already halfway into my next project, and far past the point of waiting for anyone's permission. Rachel reached out again about a month later. This time, she didn't text. She called. I almost didn't pick up. I'd just gotten home from a long meeting, and her name flashing on my screen made my stomach tighten, the way it always had, like I needed to brace for something, even if I didn't know what. But I answered. "Hey," she said. Her voice was lower than usual. "Can we talk? In person?" I waited a beat before responding. "Sure." We met that Saturday at a cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. Neutral ground. Neither of us had been there before. It was quiet, with wide windows and too many houseplants. I got there first and chose a small table in the corner. She showed up 5 minutes later, coat half-buttoned, no makeup. That alone told me something had shifted. We hugged, briefly. It felt like habit more than affection. She sat down, ordered a black coffee, then stared at the menu like she needed something to do with her eyes. When she finally looked up, she said, "I don't know where to start." I didn't say anything. She sighed. "I think I believed what she told me about you because it was easier than asking questions." I didn't expect that. She went on. "It's not an excuse. I didn't realize how much I was benefiting from it. From being the one who got praised, got defended, got protected." She paused. "And you were just there, handling things. Quietly." I kept my expression still. I didn't want her to see how much those words landed. "I remember once," she said, "I asked Mom why you didn't come to Christmas one year. She said you were probably too busy or didn't like the cold." I didn't push back. "I never thought to ask you directly. I was waiting for the address," I said. She blinked. "What?" "That year. I didn't show up because no one sent me the address for dinner." Her face changed. Not dramatic, just the smallest flicker of something that looked like shame. "I'm sorry," she said. Quiet. Direct. I nodded. "Thank you." We didn't rehash everything. I think we both knew that wouldn't help. Too many years of distance and unspoken hierarchy to unpack in one conversation. But the honesty was new, and I wasn't about to dismiss it. "I watched your documentary twice," she said. I kept thinking, how did I not know this is what she was doing? Then, softer, "I'm proud of you." That one took me a second to process. We talked for over an hour. Nothing heavy after that. Just normal things, her work, my projects, how expensive rent had gotten. It felt strange, talking like that. Not like sisters catching up after a fight. More like two people starting fresh, without the roles we used to play. Before we left, she asked if we could do it again sometime. "Sure," I said. "We're not best friends now. That's not where this is going. But we talk. Occasionally. On our terms. Without Mom mediating. And that makes all the difference. There's no pretense anymore. She doesn't ask me to cover things for her. I don't ask her to explain me to anyone. We share things when we want to, and that's enough." It's strange how light a relationship can feel when it's not weighed down by old expectations. As for my mother, we're polite. Distant. I send cards on holidays. She replies to emails in one-line bursts. "Hope you're well. Thanks for the update. Say hi to Maya." She likes to pretend nothing ever happened. That the wedding wasn't what it was. That the voicemail wasn't exactly as dismissive as it sounded. That her daughter didn't call her a deadbeat in front of half a vineyard and then watch, quietly, as the world changed its mind. That's fine by me. I don't need her to own it anymore. There was a time I would have given anything to hear her say the words, "I'm sorry. I was wrong." But now I realize it wouldn't change much. She's not built for accountability. She's built for image. And as long as she can maintain the surface, she'll keep doing what she's always done, smiling through it, controlling the narrative, editing the past to fit the present. And I've stopped trying to correct her. That's the part that surprises people. That I don't want to confront her. That I don't want to make her understand. But the truth is, she can't give me what she never had to give. Recognition. Grace. Fairness. Those weren't her currencies. She dealt in control, in appearances, in selective memory. And for years, I accepted those terms because I thought I didn't have a choice. Now I know better. Now I choose my own terms. I don't attend family events unless I want to. I don't chase invites. I don't ask for updates. If Rachel wants to see me, she calls. If Mom sends a group message, I skim it. I no longer measure my worth by how often I'm mentioned or included. It's quiet, this new life. But it's solid. The people I let close now, they know the whole story. Not the version mom curated, not the version that made everyone else comfortable. The real one. With all the tension and imbalance and quiet resilience it took to get here. And slowly, I've started to feel something I didn't expect, relief. Not because everything's perfect, but because I no longer need it to be. I've stopped performing. I've stopped apologizing. And the people who love me, really love me, don't need a backstory or an explanation to understand why I am the way I am. They just show up. As I am. As they are. No roles. No scorekeeping. No fragile egos trying to rewrite the script. Just presence. That's what rebuilding looks like for me. Not a dramatic reunion. Not a family photo where everyone pretends nothing cracked. Just two sisters meeting for coffee. Just a phone that rings less often, but always for the right reasons. Just a life that finally feels like mine. No strings. No stage directions. And no glass walls. It's been over a year now. A year since that wedding. Since I stood by the bar in a rented dress and heard my mother laugh as she called me a deadbeat to a stranger. A year since I sat in my car afterward, hands still on the steering wheel, trying to figure out how someone could erase you so cleanly while you were standing in plain sight. It feels like a lifetime ago. My company has grown in ways I couldn't have predicted. We expanded our team, not by much, but enough to handle the load. There's a rhythm to things now, pitching, producing, launching. And the latest investigation we wrapped? It made national press. A feature segment on a major network. I flew to New York for an interview. I wore a navy blazer. I kept my answers tight, focused, clear. People know my name now. Not because I shouted. Not because I fought to be noticed. But because I kept showing up. I did the work. I stayed steady. And eventually, that was enough. Sometimes I'll catch myself waiting for the high that never comes, that moment where it's all supposed to feel dramatic or triumphant. But it doesn't. It just feels quiet. Like the sound of your own footsteps in a hallway you built yourself. My mother still hosts dinner parties. Still posts pictures of cheese boards and wine pairings. I'm rarely invited. That's not a complaint. It's just a fact. But I hear, through secondhand channels, that she started introducing me differently. Angelica? Oh, she's my daughter, the journalist. She says it now like it's always been true. Like she's always been proud. I don't correct her. There's no point. Let her have her version. The truth came out anyway. And not in a dramatic confrontation or a teary apology. It came out in the work. In the credits. In the bylines. In the people who watched what I made and remembered my name. Sometimes justice doesn't look like revenge. It doesn't come with shouting or slammed doors or grand scenes. Sometimes justice looks like a quiet voiceover in a well-edited segment, your name fading in over a city skyline, while the people who dismissed you are forced to watch. I've learned to stop needing closure in the form of apology. Sometimes the absence of denial is its own kind of truth. Rachel and I still talk. Not often. Not deeply. But when we do, it's real. She sends me links to articles she thinks I'll like. I text her when I see a job posting that might suit her. We don't talk about mom. That's an unspoken rule we're both happy to keep. And mom? She's polite now. Controlled. There's a kind of caution in her tone when she reaches out, like she knows the balance has shifted, but doesn't quite know how to act. She sends me holiday cards, the generic kind, with pre-printed signatures and glitter that flakes off when you open the envelope. Sometimes she includes a note. Saw your piece, very professional, or hope you're taking time for yourself. They read like postcards from a tourist passing through my life. I keep them in a drawer. Not out of sentiment. Just to remind myself that this happened. That she saw me, eventually, even if it was too late to matter. I don't invite her in. I don't send updates. I don't hope for change. But I'm not angry anymore. That's the part one never expected. That the anger would burn out and leave something cleaner behind. Not forgiveness, exactly. Just distance. Peace. I still think about the version of me that stood in that vineyard a year ago, clutching a drink and trying not to flinch. I wish I could tell her, hold steady. You don't need them to see you yet. You'll be seen. Because I am now. In the ways that matter. By my team, who trust my leadership. By my clients, who keep coming back. By the readers and viewers who follow the stories and write in with questions, with thanks, with their own truths. By Maya, who never let me shrink. By the people who knew me before and the ones who are just getting to know me now, not as someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone quiet and dependable in the background, but as me. That's what legacy looks like to me now. Not a nameplate or a family scrapbook or a chair at someone else's table. It looks like building something solid with your own hands. Brick by brick. Story by story. It looks like creating space for people who've been sidelined, not just to be included, but to lead. It looks like showing up in the credits and knowing you earned every second of screen time. And if someone watching recognizes your name, maybe even drops a wine glass when they do, that's fine. But that's not the point. The point is, I'm not invisible anymore. I don't need their applause. I built a life that doesn't require it. A career that doesn't depend on permission. A voice that's calm, clear, and mine. So no, I'm not the deadbeat. I'm the one they tried to ignore. And the one they couldn't. Thanks for listening. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Did you stay quiet, or decide to let your success speak for itself? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. And if you're on your own journey to reclaim your worth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the best response isn't revenge, it's being impossible to ignore.